Game 7, the Dallas Mavericks season comes to an end, but there's an insane amount of things to talk about. So many storylines just from this game alone. We'll break it all down. Game 7 right here.
I'm just going to save all my thoughts for the actual video.
You'll hear them on this episode of Locked On Mavs.
It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks Podcast.
Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good! And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
This episode is brought to you by Locker Room. Download the app and join us this week to get in on the action. Locker Room, changing the way we talk sports. And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and coordinator for the Locked On Podcast Network. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor at Mavs.com, the Game 7 savant, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Oh, man. Bittersweet.
Is it sweet?
No, it's not at all.
I was going to say.
It sucks, man. I think every year it sucks when your team doesn't win the finals, for sure, whenever they do get put out. But it's another year of a Mavericks season that comes to a close. But I think, more than ever, more than ever over since Luka's draft, that, we're entering an off season that's going to be massive.
Huge. The biggest.
Rick Carlisle after the game, said that some big changes could happen. I think we're going to hit all of it on this podcast. Our pods do not go anywhere. We've already gotten some tweets. Every year we get the tweets after the last game of the year. And it's like, hey, are you guys still doing pods? I'm like, yeah, we actually just entered year 5 of doing daily podcasts. And this is actually where it gets weird and funky. And we pull out all kinds of random pods, but we'll hit everything as far as free agent targets, trade targets, who's going to stay on the staff, and everything this week.
Hey, answer this question. Can you guys talk about yes? Can you guys talk about yes?
Yep.
Can you guys? Yes. We will continue to do 5 shows a week until the NBA lull, which I guess is late August this year into September. Maybe we'll maybe go down to 3 shows a week. But in past years, we haven't done that. So even when there was a long off season and all that. So we will continue to do 5 shows a week. Today's episode, we are going to talk about and break down the Dallas Mavericks 111 to 126 season-ending Game 7 against the Clippers. Where it went wrong, kind of put a bow on this series a little bit, and just go back and it all the way. It's like I've been thinking a lot about Game 3 today. Game 3, the Mavericks, I feel like really that's going to be a huge what if we'll probably do this offseason. We'll probably continue to do What If Wednesdays, and Game 3 is one I do want to go back and watch again just to see where it went wrong, because the Mavericks get out to that huge lead at the beginning. It was all pumped up. And if they go up 3-0, man, this could be totally different. And I want to start here. I've seen a lot of people, on Twitter, and obviously Twitter's reactionary and all that. And I'm sure a lot of people
I had to get off.
I had to too. A lot of people at home are also just, mad and upset about and frustrated with the loss. Mavs should have won. Yeah, the Mavs could have won. They were up 2-0. Then they were up 3-2. They had multiple chances to put away this series. They had the chance. They were right there to be able to close this series. But they're also, they're right there to close this series. So let's not pretend like this Mavericks team is trash and there's nothing good about, all this stuff. Like the doomsday scenario, trade everybody, right? Like I'm not there yet. They almost took down this Clippers team, and it took Kawhi Leonard had one of the greatest playoff series that we've seen in a long time. I think it was Kirk Goldsberry that tweeted out just this graphic of Kawhi Leonard. Yeah, here, let me pull it up real quick. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to pull up this graphic. Kirk Goldsberry from ESPN had just this wild, the Kawhi Leonard, 200 points total scored or more on 60% from the field. The only players to do that in an NBA series are Kawhi, Shaq, Bernard King, and Kareem. That's the only time. Shaq did it in the 2000 finals, which is wild. But Kawhi just had an insane playoff series. And so the Mavericks should be at least commended a little bit to getting them to this point. The Mavericks are not favored in any game that they played in this series. So they were the underdogs the whole way. They were right there with them. And I'm not here for the full doomsday scenario where like, oh, everybody trade everybody. Now, there are definite flaws to this roster. I'm not going to go that far and say that there are not. We'll talk all about them the rest of this week. We'll focus on, is Porzingis going to stay? Is Porzingis going to get traded? All that. Rick Carlisle, where does he go? Does he stay? There's questions now about his job and all that. So what happened with Josh Richardson? Like, how did Josh Richardson become unplayable in this series? Just completely unplayable in a series that he should be able to play. Like, there's no reason why he shouldn't be able to play in this series. But he became unplayable offensively. So I guess I kind of want to end there. It took the Mavericks, it took the Clippers 7 games to get rid of this Mavericks team. And if you changed the order up on the way that the Mavericks won this series, I feel like a lot of fans would be really excited about this series and be like, man, Mavericks kind of took a step forward and all that. But because they were up 2-0, because they're up 3-2, now there's these expectations to win and the disappointment, which I understand.
Yeah, it's pretty wild when you think about the expectations part. We always talk about how expectations just change everything. And we go into the series to where every single national media person picked the Clippers except for Royce Young and I think Haberstroh. But like they weren't favored at all. Every single game, even when they were up 2-0, they weren't favored. Bet online, like you were pulling up the odds every podcast, it felt like, and they still weren't favored. And it got a lot of people's hopes up, right? Like we got our hopes up. We got confident. We were like, man, we're going to win this series. This is crazy. And it goes back and forth and it goes to that game 3 moment, like you said. And I thought about that so much today, just like you, of being up 30-11. It's halfway through the first quarter. We're up 2-0. We're in Dallas. The place is rocking. I was in the arena. I'm like, this is insane. Like, this is like mind boggling that they win that game. I mean, it could be a sweep. Nick Batum even mentioned it after the game today. I saw his comment about it. He said, that could have been a sweep. Yeah. And I think we learned a lot about that Clippers team that, man, they really, stood up to the occasion, and Kawhi put the team on his back. And even, in that game 5, the what?
Just that I'm not going to give this Clippers team a ton of credit for winning this series, right? Like,
I actually do. Their role players, especially today, like I thought Luke Kennard, Reggie Jackson, like they were just dead in the water before the series, and that they hit shots. Like Reggie Jackson outperformed.
They hit wide open threes, man. Like we've been talking about the last three games about this Mavericks team playing this zone.
You're not giving their role players any credit
for hitting these wide open shots. Like, good, they're supposed to. They're the best 3-point shooting team in NBA history, right? Like they should have won this series. So I'm not giving them a whole bunch of they dug down deep and won this series. Like they should have been winning this series. If I'm giving them like the zero amount of credit, then I like take the credit away when they go down 0-2, and now I'm probably back up to I'm probably back up to 0, right?
I just for a team that so many people slam them for their mental toughness and everything. Like,
they're the oldest team in the league. They're this veteran team.
Of what happened to them in the bubble for them failing like MVP. They did, and to be down like they did, and like I didn't think there was any chance that they were coming back from that. And they did. And then they came back in game 6 in Dallas and won that in Dallas. I just thought, their role play. I thought if they were going to pull that off, it was going to be because of Serge Ibaka and Rajon Rondo and some like these vet guys. But they won it. And they even won today because of Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, Nick Batum. Like Nick Batum's an older vet, but I was just there. We talked about going in today. Like, hey, what will be more likely? Luka dropping 50 or the role players winning the game for them today? And really, that's what happened for the Clippers. That Paul George and Kawhi combined for 40 points in this game, maybe. And it was all of these role players for the Clippers and it's like, well, dang, like they just had the better roster.
They just hit their shots.
Yeah.
Right? Like they just hit threes. They hit threes that were open. I don't know. Maybe I'm too bitter now after this, but yeah. Also, Reggie Jackson, he's been in the league a while. Like I think Reggie Jackson's been in the league like 10 years already.
I don't think he's like 33, is he?
31.
Oh, dang.
Like Reggie Jackson's a vet now, right? Like Terrence Mann, Luke Kennard, give them credit. Yeah, but the guys that like they should be doing this. They should be winning this series. So, it came down to third quarter. The Clippers go on a 24-4 run. Like that's backbreaking right there. And the Mavericks, to their credit, went on a run at the end of the fourth quarter, and just Luka didn't have enough at the end. And so we'll get into that coming up about Luka Doncic and what he has to do to take that next step and how they almost beat this Clippers team. They almost won this game 7, but We'll get into that coming up. But before we do, let's talk about Indeed.com. Indeed is the job site that you need if you are the hiring expert for your company. You need to go get it. The quality of shortlist candidates they can provide you is better than anyone else that can provide you. They have tools like Indeed's Instant Match to give you quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed fit your job description immediately, and their skills tests that on average reduce hiring time by 27%, which is about what the Mavericks shot from 3 in this Game 7. You can choose from over 130 skills tests that add to your must-have requirements, so you only pay for the applicants that meet those requirements. According to Talent Nest, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all the other job sites combined. So get started right now with a free $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked. Indeed.com/locked. Offer valid June 30th. Terms and conditions apply. Also, I want to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. I have one almost every day. Had a cherry barcia one last night. They're great. The cherry barcia is available right now. The mint brownie. We did learn about the grasshopper cookie. Grasshopper cookie is an actual type of cookie, like snickerdoodle, or whatever, like oatmeal raisin. It's like a type like that. So that one was a new one that they are probably coming out with soon. They sent it to all of us to go test out. So go check out BuiltBar.com and see when that bar is available, because you are going to want to get it. So go check it out. Go get the mint brownie. That one's always the best. And unless they have coconut brownie chunk, which, we've talked about many, many times. BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order. Again, LOCKED15 is the protein code. The protein code for your promo bars. BuiltBar.com. All right, Isaac Harris, let's get into this game. I mentioned the big difference, 24-4 run to end the third quarter for the LA Clippers. That was the big one. That was the backbreaker. That was absolutely brutal for the Mavericks. And Luka tried to bring him back, but he couldn't just muster up enough in the end. We've talked a lot about Luka in second halves and conditioning and all that, but what was the big difference for you?
Oh gosh. Yeah, that third quarter, Dallas came out in the second half and they had that little mini run and they go up 5. And you're like, oh, let's go.
Because at halftime, the Clippers were up 70-62, and then the Mavericks went on their own 19-6 run there in the third quarter. And I thought that was awesome. Like, it was great to see them get in there. Dorian and Tim Hardaway started to hit a couple threes then. The Mavericks went on a little run, and then the Mavericks took the lead, the 81-76 lead. And then after that, it just went like straight downhill.
Bottom fell out.
Just straight downhill until the fourth quarter where they tried to dig themselves back out again.
Yeah, and those are the moments where there's a big question for Luka right now as far as pacing and conditioning. And we mentioned it the other day as far as and I don't want to touch on this very long because Luka is the last person to talk about why they lost the series because they're not even close to this without Luka just being on another planet. But the next stage for him is to be in world-class shape, like a Kawhi Leonard or something, because these second half numbers, the fourth quarter numbers, you're seeing him gas in the second half because he's having to put so much effort in the first half. And I know we might say, okay, well, now he has to work on pacing because look at what Kawhi Leonard does in the first quarter compared to the second half. You're like, it's like he's kind of saving it a little bit. We've talked about LeBron before in the first quarters. He tries to get people involved and all this stuff. Luka just doesn't have that luxury because he doesn't have the teammates to allow himself to pace himself to save it for the second half. If he paced himself in the first quarter or so, then they're down by 15, 20, whatever it is. So that's where it's like this cause and effect. Upgrade the roster allows him to. That was a great moment by Luka, by the way.
Luka at times was literally laying down while the wild play was happening because he was trying to get some in-game rest there. So
yeah. It's a smart move by Luka, but that's the next phase for him because you saw in the second half he was missing the shots, he's coming up short on some of the things. It's like, man, they slowly start talking about on the broadcast, and that's just the next level for him. But I don't want that to be like the dominant takeaway for this entire pod or anything, because that's just a small thing for Luka.
There's 2 things in this game that really stuck out to me is that, yes, Luka's conditioning. Let's go over his second half stats. First halves in this series. So the entire series, game 1-7 on average, Luka averaged 22.3 points. Insane, by the way, in first halves of this series. Shot 57 from the field, 51 from 3, 69 69.
Nice.
From the free throw line. 5 assists, 2.4 turnovers. Second halves of games in this series. Luka, 13.4 points. Now, any normal player with a team with another star or whatever, that might be fine. But for this team, it was just not. Shooting 40% from the field, 29% from three, and 31% from the free throw line. Like, listen to those splits again. First halves, Luka shot 57, 51, 69. Second half, 40, 29, 31. Like that right there is like the conditioning thing, right? Because his assist to turnover was basically the same, 5-2. And his defense was, kind of lacking. They were kind of hunting him a little bit at the end of game 6. We mentioned a lot. They did that a little bit in this game too, but that scoring and that shooting went way down in the second half because of fatigue and all that. So all that to say, like Isaac said, you can't put this on Luka and say, oh, well, because he wasn't good enough. He wasn't godly in the second half of this game in order to pull the Mavs over. He was 1 point away from tying the most points in a single game 7 in NBA history.
Yeah, it just goes to show you that there is another level for Luka, that
for sure
he's already in that conversation with the best players in the world right now. But if you get him a supporting cast, some help on the roster, it will allow himself to pace himself to where then we can have these huge moments come playoff time at the very end of the year, because that's when you're going to need Luka Doncic the most. So if you go, did you want to say something about Luka? I
wanted to point out two things. That the Luka conversation, we're talking about conditioning. Yes, Luka can be better, but also we've talked a lot about. But Luka had to be that good to take this team to that level. He had to be that good because no one else stepped up. Richardson became unplayable. Porzingis wasn't playing. Like, he played decently well, I thought, in game 7, but the rest of the series he was just not there. And don't bring up they're not setting him up, they're not doing this. Like, he just wasn't being aggressive in any fashion or form of the game. And if you're not doing that, and if you're not coming out to play, then they
changed his role. I mean, we don't really. Once they changed the role, you don't want him to be. You don't really want him to be aggressive. They didn't want him to be.
No,
aggressive.
But even like rebounding, rim protection, like anything like that, trying to get open for 3, like something, just anything. They weren't getting that. So, and then Brunson apparently that couldn't be played. Like, there's just Tim Hardaway Jr. missing shots. There's just so many different things that went wrong, so that Luka had to play to this such a high level in order to get the Mavs over the top. The other thing was the 3-point shooting. The Mavs are so tied to their 3-point shooting percentage. And the reason why people were like, oh, well, if they don't hit threes, they're not going to win, is because this team has to overcome a couple of other things. And they have to overcome the talent deficiencies in this roster that we've been clear about. There for sure are. And so if you focus on those things, then those things had to be good. Luka had to be godly, and the 3-point percentage had to be dang near close to 50%. Game 1, 47% they won. Game 2, 53% they won. Game 3, 51% from 3, and they lost that one. That was a close one. Game 4 they lost. They shot 16%. Game 5 they won. They shot 39%, 32%, and 27% in games 6 and 7. So, but the reason why that it was tied so close, that their win-loss outcome was tied so closely to their 3-point percentage, was because they overcome so many other facets of the game that they just couldn't. They couldn't defend at all. Yeah. So when you can't defend, you just have to outshoot the other team.
And they just couldn't outshoot them. And you
right.
look at some, a couple of the biggest things tonight, some huge stats. It's crazy the fact that this is just an insane number to think about. They outscored the Clippers in the paint by 30.
Dallas in this game, yeah.
Dallas had 62 points in the paint compared to the Clippers 32.
Didn't they have more? They had more fast break points too. They had 8 fast break points. They had 23 second chance points.
Yeah.
How many offensive rebounds did they have in this game? They had 16 at one point. Yeah, finished with 16, and the Clippers only had 8. Like they beat them in a bunch of other areas, but since the Clippers hit more threes, it's just
and it's the fact that. I think it would be one thing if this was a Luka Kawhi duel and, Kawhi scored 50, Luka had 42, and the Clippers won the series. We would still be having the he needs help argument, but it's a bigger argument because it was the Clippers' help who helped them win this game. It was the 21 point difference in bench points. Dallas had 6 points off the bench. 6 points off the bench for Dallas.
2 guys in the top 5 in 6th man of the year. Now, Tim Hardaway started, but
compared to 27 bench points, for the Clippers tonight, and seeing Luke Kennard, go 3 of 5 from 3, seeing Reggie Jackson hit 3 threes, Marcus Morris hit 7 threes in this game. It's like they found their role players to go around these guys. And this is the type of flexibility you got to be able to have, because, Zubac plays 2 minutes in this game, 2.5 minutes in this game. Guess who's not going to play 2.5 minutes for the rest of the playoffs? Probably Zubac, unless they play the Nets in the finals, because he's going to have a massive role against Gobert. They had that flexibility because they built their roster that way. Now Dallas has to figure out because Dallas's role players just didn't. I mean, outside of what Dallas role player are you walking out of Game 7 saying, man, all right, I'll go to war with you. Like you right. Like you played an awesome game today. Like Dorian's the closest one to that, where I'm looking at saying,
for sure,
like you left it all on the floor today. I mean, he had 4 of 7 from 3. He had some 6 offensive rebounds. Dorian, like, he had a stretch there. I'm like, whoa, like what is happening right now? Dorian grabbing multiple offensive boards and steals and hitting a couple of threes. It's like, all right, like, thank you, Dorian.
Let's get into that and the role players coming up. But before we do, tell you about betonline.ag. It's the place to put down some money on sports. If you saw that Bucks-Nets game 1, the Nets really outplayed them, I thought, a lot. The Bucks did not shoot well from anywhere outside of the paint. And so now the Nets only a 1.5 point favorite over the Bucks. Now, James Harden is not going to play in that game, so that one's really interesting. So if you're thinking about putting some money down, consider that. Could be a Bucks revenge game. We'll see if they make some adjustments, see what they do. Budenholzer is having some weird lineups and didn't play Giannis a lot, and all that kind of stuff is still happening. So we'll see. Kevin Durant and Kyrie, by the way, they're just insane to watch. Nuggets, by the way, open at 4.5 point underdog against the Suns. Suns at home. So if you're feeling that line, or if you're feeling like the Nuggets can steal game 1, go check that out at BetOnline. Use the promo code LOCKEDON and get a 50% welcome bonus to your first deposit. So go check it out. They have all kinds of other sports too. If you're watching on YouTube, they have baseball still, boxing, football, golf, hockey, all kinds of things. Other basketball too. They have Greece, Italy, Lithuania, Russia, Turkey, all kinds of different leagues that you can put money down. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. All right, Isaac Harris, you asked about the role players. And yeah, Dorian was my one answer. Dorian, 18 points, 10 boards, like you said, 6 of them on the offensive end. A couple of assists there for him as well. And we kind of speculated if Dorian could have one of these games, then the Mavericks could go on to win. They just didn't have a second guy get to 20 or 25. Like, honestly, if Tim Hardaway Jr. had 20 instead of 11 in this game, the Mavericks probably win, right?
Yeah.
It's wild that their margin was so small. And in game 7s, they always are, but came down to just that. If he had hit 3 more threes, if he had gone 4 of 9 instead of 1 of 9, the Mavericks probably win the game.
Well, it's just wild how it's at this point in the season, and this just speaks to a lot of volumes here, that when Tim has a bad game, it's just not a good sign. And I texted Nick at the beginning of the game, I'm like, oh, Tim's off. This is an off Tim game. And
it's bad.
It isn't good because KP's just not what I feel like we just went down.
I know. He said it so many ways. He's not factoring in the way that he should.
Yeah. So it's like a lot hinges on Tim Hardaway, and especially with Bron. I mean, we went into the series wondering, man, is this going to be a break? We did a whole breakout player segment of the playoffs, and some of them we're like, man, is this going to be a breakout for Devin Booker or Trae Young? It's like, man, it really is happening for those guys. But we had some smaller ones like Nick Claxton, Jalen Brunson. We put Brunson in that. Yeah. I thought Brunson had a bigger role in this series, and he just didn't. And this is a question we'll talk about later on in the week, is how telling of this is Brunson. But this is also a conversation that, and I don't know if I can word this right on the podcast in one take here, but how much of our opinion of our role players in Dallas is based off this Clippers thing? Nick and I were talking about this before we hit record, but it's this, they've played the Clippers now for 13 games in the playoffs?
13 games in the playoffs.
13 games in the playoffs. And how much are you wrapping your playoff opinion brain about each role player for the Mavericks around playing the Clippers, to where if they play any other team in the league, in the Western Conference, how much does it change your opinion about a Maverick role player, whether it's Brunson or even KP or whoever it is, to where now, you see what I'm saying?
They were one game away in the regular season, one Mavericks win or whatever, from playing the Nuggets. And if they play the Nuggets, I think they beat the Nuggets. And then all of a sudden, now we're talking all glowingly about the role players and all that, right? Like, it's just so wild to think how close it was, or play the Blazers or whoever, how close it was to playing a different team. But instead, you play this Clippers team who have title expectations for this team because they should. They have a roster that can go win the title. And so, man, it's just interesting to try and think about it in that context, like you said. And so now, how do we view these role players thinking about, well, the Clippers tried to shut Tim Hardaway Jr. down in games 3 and 4 and 5, right? Basically the rest of the series. After games 1 and 2, they're like, all right, we can't leave this guy anymore. Porzingis isn't a factor, so we don't have to double him or anything. We just put one wing player on him, and he's taken out. And then all of a sudden, now it's, okay, we put our attention on Tim Hardaway and put Paul George, an all-defensive guy, on him, or put Kawhi on him. It's like, man, what do we take away now from the playoffs, having just played the Clippers and no one else?
Yeah, and I think that's a real question.
Yeah.
As far as like, if they go and trade, let's just say they traded Jalen Brunson in the offseason and he goes to another random team, and then next year he blows up in the playoffs and has some like massive game off the bench, and he's like a Monte Morris for somebody.
Because he's playing in the East and has to play like the Knicks or
the Knicks or something. And we're like, and like half of Matt's Twitter's like, oh my gosh, where was that? It's like, well, we kind of got the unlucky card here, drawing the Clippers 2 years in a row, and now we're forming all these opinions. I will say this: there were a couple of Rick decisions that
for sure
kind of threw me, and playing Boban and Trey Burke, like Trey Burke, dusting off Trey Burke and bringing him out of like the antique shop and saying, hey, you're going to be a new toy in the play bin here, was like wild. Like, that was mind boggling for me. And, you know, he basically looked at Josh Richardson just fumbling the ball and turning it over and saying, I can't watch this anymore.
Josh Richardson comes into the game and immediately a turnover on an out of bounds pass. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
he had a couple turnovers in this game. I think he had 2 turnovers in 6 minutes.
And I understand we've been clear, like, yes, the Mavericks did lose the Richardson trade, right? Like, yes,
they did.
It would have been great if the Mavericks had Seth Curry, all of that for sure.
Seth Curry would have been playing in the series.
The point has been beaten into the ground. Like, we don't have to do this over and over again where we say the Mavs lost this trade. Like, yeah, they did. The other part about this trade is that they tried to do something to fix the defense, and they tried to get a guy that has a defensive reputation around the league and should. Like, there's no reason why Richardson shouldn't be playing in this series.
You know what it reminds me of? The Rondo trade. It's like
it makes no sense how it just didn't work, right? Like,
yeah, it reminds me a little bit. It didn't end as bad because Jay Rich is an awesome teammate. It's just they looked at a team and said, hey, we have this offensive guard, Jameer Nelson or Seth Curry. I'm saying that we need to get better defensively. Let's bring in a guy who can guard opposing point guards, Rondo, Josh Richardson, and both of them just didn't work at all. And at least Jay Rich is a great teammate and a great guy. And
at least the Rondo one, you had like the Carlisle disagreement. You're like, oh, we can point to something to be. That's why it didn't work, right? Like, just because those two guys didn't agree. But the Richardson one makes even less sense than that because he just couldn't be played offensively. He played 6 minutes and had 2 turnovers, and they were both egregious, like just both terrible. His confidence was just shot, and whatever that came down to, but. He did get benched at the end of the regular season. So you're like, okay, well, maybe if the coaching staff had believed in him and he goes in the playoffs with confidence, that shouldn't be on the coaching staff. They got to play who's gonna play well, right? It's on him to come out, and if he wants to prove that he's gonna play, then he's got to play well, and he just didn't this whole series. Any minutes he played, I felt like were just like terrible. Somebody tweeted out, I think that he finished the series like a minus like 40.
Wow. And this is the type of series that you're like, man, this is the one you would.
This is the reason why they went out and traded for him, because of a series like this, to be able to guard somebody like Kawhi or Paul George. He couldn't do any of that.
Yeah. So
failed experiment, and they tried, and we were for the trade at the time, wanted to give it time, and then about 2 months ago, we were like, yep, this is it's
we're
done.
pulling the plug on that. I thought the Boban experience lasted way too long, and. Yeah. I get it that he was just a -1. I get that he had he finished with 14 and 10 in the game. He shot 63% from the field. I get all of that, and I'm not saying like I just personally wouldn't have went. I would have went small, and he tinkered with it a little bit of putting KP at the 5 a little bit.
That's not even small though.
I know he tinkered with it.
No sense.
I would have just taken him out and ran like Dorian and Tim and Brunson and Luka. And then just like took my pick with either Jay Rich or Maxey or like something, but it just never got to that point. And he stayed big. And I just think that was a little bit too much. I think it threw Dallas off a little bit.
And what it did was it allowed, when we talked about this in game 6 and game 5 when they did this. Game 5, the Mavericks won, and we were like, okay, but the Mavericks are allowing a lot of open shots from this Clippers team, and eventually they're going to start hitting these threes. And guess what? In game 5, they hit threes, or game 6, they hit threes, and in game 7, they shot 46%, hit 20 threes in this game. And that was the difference.
You played with fire. You played with fire with daring the best 3-point shooting team in the league to hit 3-pointers.
Marcus Morris went 7 of 9. He doesn't go 7 of 9 if those are contested.
Yeah, and you got burned with it, and that's they
did not get burned. It was not a burn. They got scorched to the point of unrecognizability. Is what happened with this. There's so many different angles.
Let me just ask you this big question. Since we're at the 30-minute mark.
No, we're going long today.
Okay. Well, I'll still ask it. Success or failure of a season?
I mean, I'm still success, right? If we said if they won this series, then it would have been a success of a season. They took them to 7 games. This team's supposed to be able to win a title. Now, if the Clippers go and get swept by the Jazz, maybe my opinion changes, right?
Is this a 2014 year to where you take the eventual champion to 7 games?
It could be. Could very well
lose and they win the title like they did the Spurs that year.
This team, the Clippers are supposed to win the title. They were number 3 all year in the odds to win the title on every sports book.
I'm not ready to call it a success.
Think about all the things that this Mavericks team went through. Think about the whole context of the season.
But you're still walking into the offseason saying, man, some big things need to change. I feel like a successful season, you're not walking into the offseason saying, man, some massive things got to change.
I know, but you also have to look at the season in a vacuum and say, okay, lots of things have to change, and yet they did this, right? They took the Clippers to 7, right? And they were 5th seed in the West. They went up from 7 to 5th, and then their win percentage was better. So it's not just because the West changed up. And then they took the Clippers to 7 games instead of 6 games last year. So it's you can't move the goalpost if we're just gonna look at this team and say, well, this team's so flawed. Yeah, this team's also so flawed, and they took the Clippers to 7. So
they're flawed.
Yes, this season it was a success, but now we look at the offseason, we know that if the Mavericks don't add talent, multiple talented players, then you look back and then it's a failure, right? Not this season, but then the future.
See, I just can't get there. I can't get there saying it's a success. I walked into the season saying the next step forward is winning a playoff series. And
they almost did. They got to a game 7.
They did, and it's incredible. It's this weird ground of man, I think it's amazing where they landed. Finishing 5th after everything that happened. You consider everything that happened, COVID, KP stuff on and off the court, that whole storyline drama stuff all year, KP not playing for the first part of the season. I get all of that and how they got there and going as the underdogs, but they're still part about as far as the bigger scale of saying as an organization not winning a playoff series. I feel like you can praise them of saying where you got, but also say this wasn't a successful season either.
Well, and it was all Luka, right? Let's be candid. It's all Luka, and so I consider his season a success because of what he was able to accomplish.
Season a success, yes.
Yeah, and so then the team succeeded. The team succeeded because of him. He is the team. Also, 2 minutes and 6 seconds left. The Mavericks were down 7. They hit 3 shots and they're winning the game, but they couldn't. Reggie Jackson and Morris hit it. Reggie Jackson and Morris hit 3s, and then they didn't win. But they hit 3 shots, and the season is a success, and they don't hit 3 shots, and then the Maverick season is a failure. Right? That's the way it comes down to sometimes. Make or miss league.
Okay. But at one point, do you if you're always the 7th, if they're the 7th or 8th seed over the next 3 years, and they
were 5th.
I'm saying, but if they are, if they're continuously the complete underdog over the next 2 or 3 years and they lose those series, are we still going to say successful season because you are the underdog and you took that team, the higher seed, to 6 or 7 games? No,
the goalposts changed, but the goalposts definitely changed for sure. But what were the goalposts this season? To win a playoff series.
Yes, that's always been my success.
But they played the hardest team that they could have played and took them to we were saying before the playoffs, anybody but the Clippers. Please, anyone but the Clippers. And then they took the Clippers to 7.
So do you think majority of the people in the organization are saying, oh, that was a successful season?
Well, probably not.
And if you that's
But
my
I'm
thing.
going
It's like
to.
I feel like if you think that's a successful season, then you're walking out of this series saying, "All right, we just got to tinker. Like we were a few shots away, 2
Oh,
minutes
no,
to go.
yeah, so-
like we just have to tinker."
But
I
there's a
don't-
difference between thinking the accomplishments were a success than to be disillusioned to think that this roster is one step away from winning a title. Now, I think that there's 2 steps. It's Kyle Lowry and Miles Turner. If they can pull off those 2 moves, then I think that's a title team. But you don't have to be disillusioned to think both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, because like I think Memphis is walking out saying, "Oh, successful season."
Yeah, but their timeline is so much farther back than the Mavericks is. The
For
Mavericks,
sure.
the
That's
Mavericks
what-
timeline
that's
got
what I'm
pushed
saying.
forward because of how good Luka is. Now there's the expectations of, oh dang, they could have gone to the Western Conference Finals this year if they had beat the Clippers and then gone on to play the Jazz, and they could have beat the Jazz too. So now it's a failure if they don't get there, even though our expectations were them to win a first round series.
But I think it's important to say success as an organization compared to success from the players. I think the players play on the court to get them where they're at is one thing, but lumping everything together, coaching and roster making and everything into one, I think
we're talking
it's successful.
I think we're talking about different things. Is the accomplishment of what this team did a success? Yes, all things considered. Is this team going to be able to take a step forward the way that it's currently constructed? No. Right? I think those are different things to me.
All right, let's put a poll out on Twitter.
I'm going to go full Ted Lasso. I believe you can lose while having more points than the other team. I also think you can win by having less points than the other team.
But do you win because you're happy, or are you happy because you win?
This Mavericks team won by having less points still because they took them to a 7. But let's not kid ourselves and say that this team is ready to win.
No,
by the way,
not.
today on the road to the finals.
I was going to say I was going to do it in the most like sad, somber thing at the very end. Today, on the road to the finals, in which Dallas's road is over. Our NBA playoffs coverage is brought to you by Michelob Ultra.
Yeah, you could say was.
It's only worth it if you enjoy it. And at 2.6 carbs, I probably need more carbs at this point. And 95 calories.
Did you say 3? It's 2.
2.6 carbs and 95 calories. We can all, I guess, kind of enjoy the games a little bit more this season. Thanks.
Do you want the Clippers to win against the Jazz, or you want the Jazz to win?
Nah, just give me the Jazz.
I don't care about either.
Who do you want to win now? Like
I know.
everything.
I guess the Sun. Jokic. Can Jokic win?
Yeah, Jokic would be fun, even though that Dirk conversation's weird. Suns is okay. I mean, I don't hate the Nets like everybody else does.
Me either. I said that during the Bucks game, and a bunch of people came at me and said, "No, it's just you. Everyone else hates them." Like, I don't know if everyone hates them. I think everyone thinks that they hate them.
I think
a lot of people have said Kyrie is one of the most hateable figures in sports. I was like,
who said
Kyrie is the most? Like a bunch of people commented on that tweet that I put out and said Kyrie is one of the most hateable players. I was like, he is?
I don't know. I think I want the Bucks to win it more than anybody. I don't think they will, but I think I want it because I just want to see Giannis like do that and win it in the East and beat the Net. Like that would be a good road too. Like beating the Heat and then the Nets, and then heck, you might have to beat the Hawks. And then whoever, but like I don't dislike, like Utah fans are kind of annoying. Clippers just don't have fans. Their team is just annoying. And sure, the Nuggets, I guess whoever's at the bottom I'll root for in the West, like the Nuggets or the Suns. Sure, let's do it.
Right? Yeah, it's what it kind of comes down to. We'll be back with a lot more, we'll talk about the playoffs still as we go on. We'll obviously do a whole bunch of offseason stuff we talked about at the beginning. Guys, thanks so much for sticking with us through the whole playoffs. We appreciate you guys, all the late night post-game pods and all that, and sticking with us. We'll continue 5 days a week. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.